Okay, good evening, everybody, and happy Mother's Day to everyone in the course room who has children. Every mom who has children. Of course, every mom does have children. Every mom in the course room, I wish you a very happy Mother's Day. I wanted to go ahead and give you the day to spend with family, and so I rescheduled our Zoom room till obviously right now it's 8 o'clock Eastern time, and hopefully all the fun activities have been enjoyed, and you're able to join me here in a few minutes, if you will, on the Zoom room call. But if you are not able to join me, I certainly do understand that. Not a problem. As you know, we always record these, and if you are seeing this, you are realizing that you are watching a recording, obviously. So no problem there whatsoever. I won't have a long presentation tonight unless some folks log in and have a discussion with me, but I want to go over a couple of things that are actually very key to the study of organizational psychology, industrial and organizational psychology, or as we call it, IO psychology. Obviously, leadership is one of the big ones. We had a really good week of discussions looking at some things that you clearly, by your posts and discussions, had not considered. One of them is bad leadership. And unfortunately, we see that all too often. Some of you indicated you were not a big fan of the Kellerman video, and I certainly do understand that. I'm not saying that I'm crazy about it myself. However, she does put forth an interesting argument in terms of looking at leadership. You know, we have a lot of people who look at good leadership, so called. Some of that is not as effective as it appears to be, and I'll get into that in just a second. So she has finding her niche, or has found her niche in looking at leadership that is not effective. She's very clear. I just reviewed the video once again, a part of it anyway. She's very clear uh, in her examples that she doesn't call a person a bad leader, but she does mention the situations where they didn't display good leadership qualities, such was the case with Bill Clinton. And you know, we could certainly look at times where he did present good leadership qualities. I think we could probably find that with most U.S. presidents, but she chose that example, which it's hard to argue with. Even historians look at the situation in Rwanda and realize that more should have been done by other countries, including the United States. Again, one person is not responsible for that. Um, Many people were responsible from the outside. In fact, the country itself needs to be um, looked at in terms of who was responsible. If you haven't had a chance, sometimes when I teach this class, students are not even aware of what happened in Rwanda at that time. It was a brutal, terrible thing, and there's a fantastic movie called Hotel Rwanda, and I highly recommend it. It's probably about an hour and a half movie just for entertainment. Certainly not something in the course room, but if you enjoy movies and enjoy history and politics and things such as that, you will certainly enjoy the movie, especially now after looking at Kellerman's argument. Um, Certainly will appreciate that, I think, a little bit more than perhaps you would have. So, um, you know, leadership, as I mentioned a couple of times, we unfortunately have at least as many cases of bad leadership and even bad leaders. Let's call it what it is. Um, we at least as many um, cases of bad as good. So, you know, we looked at that this week, and we looked at what constitutes bad leadership, and part of it is the motivation of the leader. And a lot of times we see this, from organizations and departments even onto countries. Um, I was speaking recently about immigration to some students, and sort of from a historical legal standpoint, um, and even looking at one of the cases I gave, I pointed out was Haiti, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a leader there called Papa Doc Duvalier. And by all accounts, he really was not a good leader for his people. You'll be hard pressed to find very many people. Obviously, you're going to find some because he had to have some people to help keep him in power. But most people would agree that he was not a compassionate leader. That he was greedy and he was self-serving, and all the things that we talked about. Subsequent, his son took over. We call him Baby Doc. It was Papa Doc Duvalier, then Baby Doc Duvalier, and both of them lived very well. And the people of Haiti, for the most part, live in poverty, which, and still to this day. And we can make an argument of why aren't more people in other countries doing more to help the people of Haiti and other third world nations. That's a whole other conversation that we could have that kind of goes along with this, but way too broad for the scope of this Zoom room. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about, I've mentioned many times that I like to go a little bit further, a little bit deeper, and give you a little bit more perspective from my experience and education and what I've done as it pertains to the topics that we're talking about. You have your textbook that you read, and you have your PowerPoint slides and the videos that we watch, and in the course room we have our interactions. And I don't want to deviate from that, but perhaps to go just a little bit deeper and maybe broader, if you will, as it pertains to the discussion. So one of the things I'm obviously, you've heard me say many times, I'm very passionate about organizational psychology. I love it very much. I've dedicated a good deal of my life to that. One of the things under the umbrella of organizational psychology is leadership. And I've written, actually got published some time ago, about the importance of bringing this idea of teaching leadership at a younger age. And you've heard me say before, I think, I'm an adjunct professor here at Central Christian College of Kansas, and I absolutely love it. I'm an adjunct professor at another university as well. I like to do talks and workshops to companies. I love the adult part of educating that I do, but I also work at one of the largest school districts in the country. I think the 6th or 7th largest school district here in South Florida is where we're located, but in the entire country we're 6th or 7th largest. And I work with kids at the elementary age level and other kids as well, but a big part of what I do is at the elementary level. And I work as much as I can to help teach them leadership skills, but we don't have a curriculum, as it were, or an accountability to teach leadership skills or emotional intelligence to young kids. And leadership isn't, it's something that you teach, but more than that, it really is something that you cultivate. If we want to have the people that are coming along behind us, behind you and me, be good leaders, and I think we do, because we are all adults in this course room. I'm not sure how the youngest one is in the course room, but I don't think anyone in this course room is under 20 years old. I can think of several of you that are in your 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s. I myself am 57, probably the oldest one, but maybe not. I'm not always the oldest one. Sometimes my students are older than me, although as the years go on, less and less of that happens for obvious reasons. But as I go into my retirement age years and my elderly years, which are, right here, 57, if you're not here yet, it comes fast, and you start thinking about, oh goodness, I'm closer to 60 than I am to 50, and I'm closer to 65 than I am to, 49, I guess it is now, right? It's 8 years away. So, that starts to matter. I love what I do. I don't know that I'll ever retire, God willing. I'll keep my health for a long time. Nevertheless, I want to be assured that the people coming along behind me, the people that are 15 years old, the people that are 25 years old, 35 years old, that they are excellent leaders. It matters to me on a personal level. It matters to me because it's important for my faith, but it also is very important to me because I want people to be able to sort of take the reins. I want to at least be able to semi-retire, knowing that, and not just me, but my generation, my age, if you will, we should be able to at least feel free to retire or semi-retire with some semblance of confidence that the folks behind us, the men and women behind us, have good leadership skills and will make good decisions in the area of business, in the area of healthcare. Think about that now. In the area of government, politics. Now we're talking, broad scope here, right? I'm obviously beyond my community, but there's going to be some good, some bad. But we want to have an idea that the generation coming up behind us has good leadership skills. And if we don't teach that, how do we think it's going to happen? Now, we should teach it in our homes and we should teach it in our churches, but certainly we should also teach it in our schools. And it's just, in schools, and I'm not here to knock public education. In fact, I'm a proponent of it. But we are really hammered with this idea that kids must really do well in reading and language arts, and they must really do well in math, and they must really do well in science, which they should. But there isn't nearly the same attention paid to the social sciences. We don't dedicate any time, or very little time, at the elementary level to learn about government, to learn about good decision making. And yourselves, you've been through that. How much of these kind of things did you learn in your academic career from kindergarten through 12th grade? This is, in many cases, when I talk to students, this is maybe the first or second time that you've spent any time on leadership. There's courses on leadership, of course, but even at the college level, when you're taking courses on leadership, oftentimes it is the first real time you're taking a look at it. So I'm passionate about teaching this because this does have a direct correlation to society and how well society is going to function. If we do not cultivate good leadership, among other things, civility is another big one. We are going to see our country, go slowly, hopefully not fast, but slowly down the way that we look at other countries and how they've kind of deteriorated, or even companies. When I was a young kid in my teenage years, that living where I lived, there was everyone's hope, not everyone, but many people in my neighborhood, it was kind of a sort of working class, but people did fairly well there. There was a lot of union jobs at that time. So the big hope was if you didn't go to college, that you got a job for Eastern Airlines. They had a Miami. I don't know if they were based, I think their main base was Atlanta, but they had a big base down in Miami. And a lot of folks went to work for Eastern Airlines. Now, maybe you don't even know what Eastern Airlines is. It was a big major airline in the 60s and 70s. But by the early 80s, it was not only not good, it was gone. Things will happen if you don't make good decisions. And leadership is imperative to making good decisions. Everything trickles down from the leader. You can have very good employees and associates making good decisions, being collegial to each other. But if the leader does not take the initiative to be the leader, it's like trying to, I think in this course room, somebody used an example early on about, trying to plug up a dam, a leaky dam with sand. It doesn't work. With a strong leader, if you go with a strong leader and you have so-so associates, that leader can cultivate a good organizational culture with those associates. But without a good leader, the associates cannot do it. And that's been my experience. A couple of things, just sometimes we have reluctant leaders. We have folks who are kind of thrust into that position, and they don't really like it. But typically, they will step up and do a good job with it, looking to cultivate other leaders to take their place, and that's a fine thing. We like to see that. One of the things, if you did pursue this field of organizational psychology further, one of the things that consultants do, which a lot of times the consultants are organizational psychologists, one of the things that they work on with organizations is this leadership succession, like the leadership cultivation. Who's coming along behind you. It's not subtle. It is overt. It is in your face. Who are you cultivating? Who are you grooming to be the next leaders? The idea is you should always, in a very conscious way, be developing leaders to come along without any fear that they're going to take your job. At some point, you do want to retire. And if not, then you will move right along as well, and those leaders will come and take your place, and you'll discover a whole new way to lead. The leader will discover a whole new way to lead that wasn't even thought of before. So, the other thing, one thing I did want to mention, I'm not going to stay on that long tonight. And I did want to, I alluded to this earlier, you may not have caught it. One of the things that is seen oftentimes is a great leadership trait, but oftentimes it turns out it's really not. That is this idea, this concept of charisma. Oh, he's so charismatic, he's going to be a great leader. And I don't mean to say it's always bad, or people with charisma are bad people. That's not what I'm intimating at all. However, there's a downside to a person with charisma, and charisma is a hard thing to define, really. I mean, there's a definition for it, but you know it when you see it. It's the person who lights up a room when he walks in. It is the John F. Kennedy, who I think was a great president. He was said to have great charisma. When he walked into a room, sort of all eyes were on him. He was the center of attention, even if it was a cocktail party or a networking event. We had a group of 3 or 4 people over here and a couple people over here and some people sitting down over here. It was always sort of he controlled the temperature of the room. People would kind of be looking to him, even if you're involved in your own conversation, you'd be looking to see if he was going to speak to the group, or he was going to leave, or what he might be talking about, or who he was talking to, who might be his inner circle, because perhaps you won't get a chance to speak with him, but you can speak to those people who he was speaking to, thereby getting closer to him. And you look for his ideas. And when he did speak to the group, everyone would give that attention. You've seen it many in the classroom or in church. Sometimes people come in and they'll start to try to get people's attention, and it's challenging for them, and they have to sort of almost demand that, or hey guys, excuse me, hey, hello, guys, stop for a second, please. Hey, guy, okay, just one sec. That guy, he's not a bad guy, or lady, but the person who has charisma just kind of walks over and says, hey guys, and all of a sudden they have people's attention. That's what charisma is. Now, the problem with charisma is people will follow someone with charisma oftentimes without question. This is a little bit what Kellerman was alluding to. We have to sort of be conscious of our leaders and sort of challenge their ideas sometimes. People with charisma will get people to follow them, I won't say blindly, but almost, because they know what's going on. And oftentimes they do make good decisions. But the problem is they don't always make good decisions. Lots of times they do. But when the thing is, when they make a bad decision, nobody sees it coming. Nobody. We could allude to the Bay of Pigs invasion under Kennedy's administration. That's used more often as an example for groupthink, which is another thing that we talked about this week, which is relates to charisma as well, where people just don't challenge a leader. A person can be a good leader without charisma. They don't light up a room necessarily, but they say, okay, there's a chart, there's an organizational chart, I'm in charge. Guys, I'm in charge. I'll make the final decisions. I want your input though. And that person that is not charismatic, the person that's charismatic is not used to being challenged usually. The person who doesn't have that charisma has leadership qualities, but will listen to the people in the room, get input from them, weigh that out, and then make a decision based on his ideas or her ideas and the ideas of the group. And if it doesn't look like a good idea, unlike the person with charisma, he'll be or she'll be challenged more. So that's the one thing I did want to talk about with leadership that I alluded to before. The other thing is, the communication in organizations. We talked about this, even alluded to it a few weeks ago. Real important to have an idea. And there's a difference between having complete open communication and then complete closed communication when nobody knows what's going on. There are some things that the associates need to know, and there are some things that, research and development things that I alluded to. But never should there be this idea that we're keeping something from you that you should know. That's kind of the rub right there. There are some things that you don't want to know about and you'd be bored with, and it doesn't concern you, and it's my burden to carry. There are other things that I should share and I do share. But the difference is I'm not going to give this to you because your job is not to worry about that. I'll take care of it. If I took time out to share this burden with you, it would detract from my making a decision and detract from you doing the kind of a job that you're supposed to do. So just talking about communication structure here on this slide. Another thing that comes into play with, I'm just going to allude to this real quick, with group roles and communication is personality temperament. They're basically agreed upon. You've heard probably the Myers-Briggs. You may have even taken the Myers-Briggs. There's other personality assessments. And essentially, there's 4 really. Myers-Briggs gives 4 times 4, 4 squared. They break it down to such minutiae it's hard to follow. I like it, but it's hard to apply that in my experience in organizations. But if you can get something like personality lingo or the DISC, you can identify people's personality temperament, and you can communicate with that with them through that. Who's more likely to bring the donuts to the meeting, who's more likely to make sure the meeting starts on time, who's going to be upset if the meeting doesn't start on time, who's probably going to be late. These are things that we can kind of discern from personality temperaments, and understanding it can help alleviate a lot of the problems. Being late to a meeting, can be problematic, but not necessarily always. There are ways to deal with that. The person who's going to bring the donuts, the connector, if you will, may be the person who, is unlikely to speak up if he or she sees a problem. And you may have to be aware of that and consciously, hey, Joe, hey, Jill, what do you see as a potential problem here? I want to hear from you, because they don't like to speak up because they don't like conflict. They don't want to deal with conflict. So that's important to understand for group roles. So again, a little something extra that you may want to look into on your own, or maybe want to pay close attention to when it comes up again in conversation. So this week I'm going to cut it out for now. We are going to not have a Bible verse. Rather, I'm going to think outside the box a little bit, and we're going to go with one word that you'll share with me to get your points for watching the Zoom room or attending the Zoom room recording. And that word is charisma. So you'll just let me know about that, and I will award your points and record your points as I say, and we'll go on from there. But other than that, I hope you had a great Mother's Day, and I will see you. We got our final week coming up. If you haven't turned something in, please get it in right away, because this course shuts down next Sunday night at midnight, and nothing else I can do about any assignments that were not submitted. Nothing I can do about it. It's done. But if you get them in, I will be as fair as I can to everyone, to those who got them in on time. I will be aware of that. People who did not get them in on time, except for extenuating circumstances, wouldn't be fair to give them the same opportunity to earn full credit, but you will get some credit, which is better than a zero. I want to see everybody do well in this class. If you need me, you know how to get in touch with me. If you need to text me, that's my cell phone number. Better to text me than to leave a voice message. I think I may have lost a voice message a few weeks ago. Might have been from a student, I'm not sure. Get a lot of calls. But if you text me, tell me your name and what course you're in. That'll save a lot. Other than that, the best way is in the message tab, because I check those, as I said, every day, usually 3 or 4 times a day. So until then, the word's charisma. A quick prayer for you, Father in heaven. Just a quick prayer to touch out, to reach out and let you know that we love you. And I ask a prayer for each student in this course, as well as their family. We are nothing without you. We ask that you guide our steps. Bless us. Let us find the time to do the things we need to do according to your will, and clear the path so that we may move forward, succeed, and fulfill the purpose that you have in our life. We pray this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. All right, everybody. All the best to you, and I will see you later. Good night.